So wouldn't we like to know the story behind that man's question? Yeah. Because inheritance in families can be a tricky thing. So tricky that in mid-September we're going to have a seminar here about getting our legal affairs in order, about the importance of having advance directives, power of attorney, and wills in place. We've invited area speakers to help us learn more about this. So watch for information about this in your newsletter that's coming out during the week ahead. The name of the seminar will be Get Your Act Together Legally. There are two reasons we're doing this at church. One is it's part of our care for you and your family. If we can make a difficult time for everybody easier, we should do that. But there's also the challenge that as people of faith, our faith and God's guidance can help us during the most difficult times of our lives. Sometimes that's making decisions before difficult times get to us. And our faith also helps us define what matters most to us in our lives. There's a lot of guidance from Jesus about that in this parable. The gift Jesus gave us in parables is that they have, each of them, a multitude of meanings that kind of shift and change to address whatever stage of life we're in. We can find something in most parables that speaks to us about what we're going through. And Jesus literally says before he shares this one that he doesn't want to judge anybody, but this parable is a cautionary tale to be on our guard against greed. Jesus understood from the question the man was asking that he must be unhappy with his family inheritance. The inheritance laws at that time said that the oldest son got a double portion of whatever was being inherited, and the remaining resources were to be equally divided among the remaining sons. If a family had only daughters, the daughters had to marry cousins so all the resources could stay in the family. Jesus was inviting his listeners to think outside of their customs. He was challenging his audience to change their worldview and think critically about how their overall values were affecting the community around them, if that's what made them try to hang on to all of their resources. So Jesus was inviting the man to kind of reconsider what mattered most to him, not to measure his life by wealth and possessions. So let's think about the parable for a minute. There's only the man and his possessions in that story. Only a man and his possessions. There's nothing else the man is concerned about. He seems to value wealth and possessions and not having to depend on anyone else. This is often called the parable of the rich fool, but his values are not that unusual today. We joke about whoever has the most toys wins when we die, right? Or the most fabric, or the most yarn, or all of those things, right, that we might accumulate over time. I know that when I was packing and unpacking last year when I was moving, I knew that I had accumulated too much stuff again and have committed to purging this year. So every time I give away a box of stuff, I have to say I feel like I'm living a little bit lighter in the world anytime I can find a new home for a box of stuff. Let's think for a minute about the stories of people fleeing from wildfires in Texas and Alaska, Oregon and California, and countless other places around the world right now. Climate change is a tragedy on its own, and so are the accounts of people making choices in a short amount of time about what matters most to them that they need to take with them when they flee their home, leaving their property and possessions behind. They're doing all they can to save their lives, their loved ones, meaning their family, their friends, their pets, those living beings that we share relationship with, that companion us on the journey of our life. Those relationships of care matter more than anything else. Even what our property might mean to us is usually associated with the history of our family and the relationships we've had in our lives. I've seen a couple of people interviewed after they've fled from the wildfires who suddenly were able to take the perspective that now that they were free of possessions, they were going to start over differently. That they also felt lighter in the world. It was a time to start new in a new way. So we are to be on our guard against greed, whether that's our desire for food, for wealth, or for power. It's part of our human condition to put ourselves and what we want first. And we don't all come to practice the opposite of greed easily. The opposite of greed is most often understood to be generosity. The sharing of our food and our wealth and our power with grace, giving those resources to others without expecting anything in return. We do that most easily and most often with people we have a relationship with. And it's a completely different level of generosity to share with people we don't know at all and to give to them freely with no strings attached, expecting nothing back. There are some amazing examples of that in the world around us, though. There's the story of soccer player Sadio Mané from Senegal, who is an incredible example of generosity. He earns, granted, $10 million annually, approximately. Reporters noted that his Apple Watch had a cracked face, and they wondered why he wasn't just getting a new one if he had all that money. And he responded by saying that he wants no personal luxuries, no luxury cars or homes. He prefers to provide clothes and shoes and food for people who have almost nothing in Senegal, to build schools and stadiums and communities that he knows well because he grew up there without those opportunities, and he remembers what it was like to be without. Now, we've not all had his experience, and most of us don't have his disposable income. But a few weeks ago, we read about Jesus' advice to all of his disciples when he said, "Take nothing with you when you're coming to follow me. Take nothing with you." Jesus meant for our faith to guide us in every part of our lives, not our stuff. We need to let our faith guide us and make sure it's not our stuff, the stuff we carry with us in the world. Now, I marvel every time I arrive here at church in this beautiful building that you've created here in this place. It's a gift, and it's a gift that together you paid off the mortgage on the building project. You are an incredibly generous group of people, and this whole building is a wonderful space for ministry. It is the physical plant for the spiritual work that's intended to happen here, and that spiritual work continued all through the pandemic, in the midst of the building project, and now to the other side, though we're still in the pandemic. And that has slowed down, celebrating that the building is reopened and we are here in this place. It slowed down our outreach efforts. So what I know with certainty is that this fall, it's time to develop our events and programs to reach out to the people around us again, especially those that we haven't seen here in this place since before the pandemic. Now, I wasn't here before the pandemic, so I'll have to go by who you're missing and who you know hasn't been seen here. We'll have to be on our guard against feelings of just wanting to keep all of this beautiful place to ourselves. Because if we start inviting more people to come here, come here and gather for worship and other activities, you might get here on a Sunday morning and somebody might be sitting in your place. If that's what happens, look at all this space up front. You're invited to come sit up front with me. There's always room up here. I shouldn't have to sit by myself. Please come up. So if someone displaces you, make that your solution. Because we can share this place and all that we have here with grace and generosity, with people we haven't seen for a long time, or maybe the people God draws here we've not even met yet. Because that'd be a gift to have God draw somebody in the door and give us a chance to welcome them. Whether it's to worship or any of our other events, it's a gift when God draws people to this place. So let's be ready to share generously all that God has shared with us here in this place. I trust that God can guide us to do that with grace and generosity each and every day. Amen.